Hi everyone, thanks for having me today. My name is Stacy Minahan, and as she said, I am the director or the assistant director of career and technical education at the Schuylkill Technology Center. So today we're going to be talking about stress, and more specifically, we're going to understand the impact that stress and secondary traumatic stress have on teachers. We're going to determine some self-care needs, provide teacher wellness strategies to implement in your schools. And finally, we're going to try to learn how to build a positive community that supports student achievement. So before I start, I just wanted to say a little bit about our school. We're probably different than most people out there. I'm not sure what exactly, I think it's pretty much all over the board where you guys are from. So we are a technology center, a career and tech center. We're located in Schuylkill County in East Central Pennsylvania. We have two buildings. We have a North Campus and a South Campus, and we have 21 programs. So we have carpentry and machining, we have culinary, we have cosmetology, diesel, pretty much run the gamut here, nursing, early childhood. So we have a lot of programs that our kids can come to learn the trade that they are interested in. We have 7 sending districts that are all from or 12 sending districts that are all from our county. They send their students to us, and they're here for half a year. So we are a semester about program. So that means our kids are with us for 90 days and are they're here for 90 days, and then they go back to their home school for the other 90 days. So they're in their shops pretty much the whole entire day, except for social studies they have for an hour if they take it, and then they have lunch. So our kids are 9th through 12th grade, so they're all kind of mixed together at the same time, and the teachers are working with all 4 levels at one time. We have approximately 220 students per building each semester, and approximately 85 staff members. And it's important to know that our districts are basically economically disadvantaged population. Pretty much all of them are, and most of the kids we get fall into that category. So I skipped it, sorry. How do I go back on this thing? There it is. Okay, so to start off, I just wanted to ask everyone to complete the thought. So in the chat box, if you would write 5 adjectives that describe the last year in education for you. So take a couple seconds and type that in there. We'll see what you come up with. I feel that today, Rachel, definitely. It's been an interesting day for me here. Chaotic, challenging, fragmented, disjointed. Hopeful, oh, I'm good. I'm glad you have that in there. Confusion, frustrating, OMG, challenging, life-changing, absolutely. Very, very true. Tiring, I'm very tired. Yep, I can agree with that. Frustrating, unpredictable. Okay, so you can keep putting those in there. I see a theme, right? And I was hoping to see that theme, or else my whole presentation was kind of not going to go the way I wanted it to. But unfortunately, these are the way, things have been going for the last year or two. People are stressed out. People are having a hard time. Things aren't going the way they usually do. So there's a lot of stress and frustration happening in the world of education. So we are going to talk about that today. And we're going to try to figure out how we can try to overcome some of this stuff in our home lives and in our school life. So to start out, I came up with this list, which is no way comprehensive, but I wanted to kind of talk about what usually happens pre-COVID, I would say, and then where we are today in 2022. So in any given year, in any given school, teachers and educators have stress, right? So most of the things we talked about previously were standardized testing scores. How are my kids doing? Do they compare to other kids? Are they getting what they need to be able to pass those tests? District-wide, are we meeting the standards? Are we not meeting the standards? What do we have to do differently? all those kind of things. Class sizes is an issue. Funding for education sometimes is going down, and teachers are leaving the profession, especially now. And we're not replacing them a lot. They're retiring, or for whatever reason, they're not here anymore. So class sizes are going up. Teachers have a lot more kids to deal with on a daily basis. So that can be something that's a stressor. Workload and accountability. Paperwork is, just always there. We always have to do something. We're taking notes. We're writing down what happened this week. We're talking about an incident that went on, and we have to document all those things. So paperwork, especially my teachers, they're carpenters and hairdressers and all that. So paperwork is not their favorite thing because they didn't do a whole lot of that previously, especially the way they do now. But that's something that they need to do every day. Accountability kind of ties into those other things, making sure your kids are getting what they need, making sure that they are on target and on track, and you're where everybody else is, especially in those grade level bands. 5th grade, am I keeping up with all the teachers? Am I making sure I'm where I need to be? Am I doing what I have to do? IEPs add a challenge because there are a lot of kids with those, and you have to you have to make sure you're meeting all of their requirements and doing all the things that you need to do for each child individually. Preparation and time, obviously. I've never heard a teacher in my entire life or educator anywhere say that they had enough time to do what they needed to do. So everybody's always scrambling. We had that conversation today. Our grades are due tomorrow, and I had a teacher, she said, I'm so overwhelmed. I just have to get these grades done, and I don't have time to do it. I have meetings. So time is always something that teachers are stressed about. Discipline problems, that was my day today. I just laid on the floor in carpentry and was full of sawdust about 15 minutes ago, trying to find something that a kid told me was down there that I didn't end up finding, by the way. So, I'm dealing with more discipline than I usually am, and so are other people in the buildings. Some of those things that are going on online too is really making a big issue with discipline. So these TikTok challenges, I know a couple of our districts out there have had bathrooms that have been, vandalized and all kind of things like that. So we're seeing an increase in some of those things as well because of technology and just kids wanting to do what TikTok is telling them to do. So parents, we always have parents, they want to make sure that they know what's going on with their kids. Do we have to call them if something's happening? Are they checking grades? Are they calling us? Do they want to know? Sometimes I'm that parent, unfortunately, that calls my kids' teachers or emails and says, hey, they have an 80, what's going on? So we have to make sure we're talking to them and communicating. Just different changes. Every year I seem to come back to school and there's a new thing that we need to do. Something's different. So we had the SLOs, now we have the SPMs. They're essentially the same thing, but there's a new title and teachers get all panicked. We have to learn something new. So just having those constant changes all the time, whether it's in administration and different philosophies or something from PDE or wherever it's coming from, change happens quite a bit in education. And then we have student trauma, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Homelessness has become a bigger thing these days. Extracurricular duties, if you're a skills president or you're part of the union or whatever it is, having time to make sure you're doing those things fully and to the best of your ability. And sometimes low pay, depending on where you are, can be a stressor. You're spending a lot of time. I know most days I'm at home, nights, weekends, all the time, doing extra work. So you're not getting paid for those extra hours for most people, but you're putting them in anyway. So the pay is not really equaling out when you're doing those extra things. So those are typical stressors that we could see at any time. Since COVID happened, we have all these extra stressors, right? Things are building up, and like you guys said, it's stressful, it's demanding, it's overwhelming. There's a lot of those adjectives that you guys were using that are describing what it's been like since this has happened. So COVID protocols, I can say that finally, we got rid of the masks and all of the other things, the distancing and everything. We're not doing it anymore. That just happened like this week. But prior to that, and when I first did this presentation, I was spending probably 3/4 of my day dealing with COVID, whether it was people that were being quarantined, who's quarantined, how do we have to track them? Are we tracking them? Do I have to shut down a shop? Do I need to make sure my kids are going virtual? Are they going virtual? Are kids 6 feet apart? Are they listening in the cafeteria? We had plexiglass across our cafeteria tables, so kids were on opposite sides, and it literally looked like a jail in there. So the kids were, not getting the usual interactions that they do. We had them by tables and by shops, and everybody's kind of where they needed to be. But that's not how we like schools to run. So COVID protocols were really a big issue up until recently, and hopefully they're going away and we're going to lose that part of it, but you never know. The other thing that happened with COVID obviously was the education loss and learning gap. And, it's really difficult to figure out where those kids were and how much of a learning loss there was and how big the gap was. And we're still learning that. I think we're doing better, and we kind of know now where we are on that chart, but how are we going to catch up? What are we going to do? Can we do extra hours? Can we help our kids? Since we're a CTC, one of the things that happened to us with learning loss was that we used to have 4 levels of kids at one time. So we'd have 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. Most of the time they fit into those levels. We have levels 1 through 4. But now we kind of have 1.5s. We have 1 3/4. We have 2.5s. So instead of our teachers teaching 4 levels, they're teaching 8 or possibly 12 levels of kids, depending on when they were here. So because we were half a year, if a kid was here in March when we went home 2 years ago and missed half of that semester and then came back the first semester, the next half, they essentially missed the whole year of education. They were online virtual, but CTE is a lot different where you're hands-on and you need to be in the shop and doing what you're doing. So they lost all of that time. So those kids might be back now and they're trying to catch up those extra 2 semesters. So for our teachers, they're trying to make sure that all the kids are able to catch up and get where they need to be. But it's a lot less time with your kids in shop. And the kids have to, sorry, my phone's ringing. We have to figure out where they are and how we're going to manage all of those things. And I kind of said before, the virtual instruction and the synchronous teaching, that was really difficult for all teachers, I think. I mean, one day we're teaching and we're great and we're in the classroom, and then the next day it's like, okay, we're doing this online and go. Just get your kids, here they are, you're on for 6 hours, make it work. And I can't imagine being a kindergarten teacher and doing that because that had to be really stressful. But one of the things that happened is we still are using those strategies at times. And I know for us specifically, we had a lot of online tools that we purchased so we can try to get kids caught up with the learning gap part. So we have hands-on at STC, but we also have theory, and our kids have to understand, why you're putting this frame together for a house and what's it going to do, and how come you're doing this instead of that or using this instead of that. So we ended up purchasing some online software that could help our kids do the theory part of the lesson, but they're struggling to use it, especially the kids that have IEPs and are lower level and they're not really good with technology in that way. So it's taking that human element out. So our teachers are now working more with the hands-on pieces and trying to get the kids caught up in that respect, and the kids are kind of left doing it on their own, the virtual instruction piece. So it's not the same, and educators are stressing out about that because they want to be able to have those conversations. They want to be able to do the theory lessons, but the time is just not allowing that to happen due to the amount of impact that it had on us when we were at home. Equity is a big term at this point. We've been hearing that a lot this year specifically. So making sure that all kids have the same access to everything. We do our best, and I'm sure many of you are like this. We gave out laptops and Chromebooks and all those kind of things for students, and we gave out MiFis, but we still have kids that are in the middle of a field somewhere. They live out in the middle of nowhere, essentially, and they have, even though they have the MiFi, they're still not getting internet access. So, we're trying our best, but it's still not equitable for all students at sometimes. Plus you have the kids, like I said, the kids that are behind or slower learners or that have IEPs that need those extra supports in place. And we're struggling to get them to them just because of distance and all of those other things that factor in. The thing that we've been seeing a lot this year, especially at the beginning of the year, and I think it's kind of going away now a little bit more, thankfully, was student engagement or disengagement. So students, when they were at home, I know my kids were playing video games all night long, and then they were sleeping all day, and then they do their hour of homework and get everything caught up, and then they wanted to keep living that lifestyle. So it took a lot of time to get them to be able to come back to normal and want to be at school. We still struggle with that some days. My kid is 10, one of my kids is 10, and he'll just say, I'm going to do a virtual day today. And I'm like, well, that's not how it works anymore. So, but we're seeing that across the board. We're seeing that with the older kids too. One of the things that happened with our kids, and it added to the excess absenteeism here, is that our kids were working during the pandemic because they have those skills. So a lot of our students were able to go out and get a job because people needed anybody to work for them, and our kids have some skill. So they were going out, they were working all week long, they were working 40 hours, they were getting paid really well. And then when we came back to school, they wanted to keep going to work. And they didn't want to come back here because they thought, well, I'm working, so I don't need to go to school. So we had a lot of kids with absenteeism issues at the beginning because they were still wanting to go through that routine and stay there. And the employers wanted them to stay too because they were helping out. So we were able to get some kids on co-op, but until we figured out that that was happening, it was kids were building up that absenteeism a lot. Anxiety is up, social emotional learning and wellness. We've been talking so much about that. That's been happening. Kids, especially kids that are not excited about being around other kids or that like to be more alone, those interpersonal kind of kids, they liked being at home because they weren't around peers all the time. They can do their own thing, they can do what they needed to do. Unfortunately, the kids that were being bullied maybe at school were excited because they got to stay home and they weren't around these kids and they didn't have to see them and go through that. And now we're bringing them back and they're reluctant to be here because they don't want to go back to where they were before and have all that start up. So we had kids that were very anxious to come back. We have kids that they lost parents. We had kids that their parents are in the hospital. We have kids that their parents had COVID or a family member had COVID or they had COVID and they're still not okay. So the anxiety about all of those situations at home. We had kids that their parents lost jobs. A lot of things happened in that year and a half or however long it was there that caused a lot of stress outside of the home as well. So they're bringing that in with them, the anxiety, and it's the educators are feeling that as well. I mean, they had the same things happening, right? So not only is it happening to the kids, but it's also happening to the adults. Social emotional learning, like I said, it's always something that we're looking at. We're trying to get the kids to understand, this is where we are and this is where we need to be and this is how you need to act when you're in school and this is how you deal with your emotions. But we weren't able to really talk too much about that with them when they were out. So we kind of went, I feel like we went a little bit backwards just because of the lack of access to them and getting them information that they need. Where are we? So one of the things that happened with us, unfortunately, is that we had a lot of death earlier this year. We had 1 week where we had 6 students die in that week. And that was the worst week I've ever had as an educator. It was just one thing after another. It was car accidents. It was students completing suicide. It was a seizure the student had and ended up passing away. So our kids all felt that, and then our adults all felt that as well. And our adults didn't know how to handle that. And it was really difficult to try to manage our own stress and then try to help the students manage their stress. So that was something that we dealt with here that's unusual, but it was awful. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to help people. It was just really, really terrible time. So, having all these outside things that you don't think about are building up and adding to that stress. What I do see is we had these kids and a couple of them left notes, and what they're saying is that their girlfriend or boyfriend broke up with them and they don't want to live anymore. So going back to that social emotional learning, which I think is a really important thing, and I'm glad we're here talking about it, and I hope this conversation continues later. But what I saw happen over COVID is that kids, like I said, they want it to be online. They want it to, when they were away from each other, they had no social interaction. And they were playing video games all night, and that's the way they were communicating. Or they were on the phone texting, and that's the way they were communicating. And they weren't making friendships. So I feel like our kids are not making actual friendships these days. They're just acquaintances. And they may end up having then one relationship with somebody that is really close to them, and they consider that like their only person because it's the only real person they're doing things with and actually, you know, physically interacting with most of the time. And then if that relationship breaks down and it ends, then they literally feel like they have no one at all. And I see that happening more and more and more with our kids here. When I talk to them, they feel like they don't have anyone. So then, you know, these kids are saying, well, I don't want to live anymore. And sometimes they're taking their lives, unfortunately, which is very traumatic and awful. And we hope we can get to all these kids before that. And unfortunately, sometimes we can't. But just the fact that they're thinking that and saying that, that's something we really need to look at with this mental health piece and say, you know, how can we try to do better to get these kids to understand relationships and get them off of the video games and that technology and try to get them back to communicating in, you know, ways that are positive and helpful in person. So that's definitely something we need to keep looking at, in my opinion, and try to work on to get them, you know, better. Educator stress, like I said, that week was emotionally exhausting. Pretty much every week is emotionally exhausting. I go home most nights and I just want to sit on my couch, and I can't because I have 2 kids in 7 teams right now and travel sports and everything else. So we're running all the time and you never get time to just sit and relax. So that exhaustion is taking over for a lot of people. Everybody's lives are kind of back to normal a little bit and getting chaotic. So we don't have a lot of time to work with that emotions and try to get it out. People are more depressed, I think, than they were previously. At least it seems that way with a lot of kids. Like some of the things I was talking about, you know, losing friends, losing parents losing jobs, not being able to interact like they could for so long. And now things are different than when they left before, right? Nothing's really the same as it was. So they left this life that they maybe liked and everything was good, and all of a sudden 2 years later it's completely upside down, and they don't know how to handle that. Educator stress, staff shortages. I think I said previously, you know, people are leaving the profession. We're not filling jobs. We have people that are out with COVID. So if you have a teacher or an instructional leader, whoever that's out for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, sometimes maybe longer, and some of them don't come back. It's just adding to all that pressure and the stress that everybody's undertaking. Childcare responsibilities were a big thing previously, a couple of years ago when this was all starting. People didn't know how to deal with their kids at home and you know, do their job as well. So that was stressful. Hopefully that's getting a little better as well. And workforce demand is something for us that is really important. So like I was saying previously, our kids were out working when they were, you know, home before, but now we can't send them out as much unless we can get them on co-op. But for us, our job is to train the workforce, and our kids miss that year and a half, whatever it was, half a semester, 2 semesters, and that learning loss is there. So when our kids graduate this year, they're not going to be as ready as kids that were put pre-COVID, right? So our goal is to try to get the workforce you know, filled and all those jobs filled, but we're not there now, and we have less kids to send out on co-op. We have less kids that we're saying, hey, this kid's ready, just because of that learning loss. So and they need the people, right? I get phone calls every single day about, I need people for this, I need people for that, I have nobody. I just was talking to a lady a half hour before I got on here that she needs 4 people and they're a mile up the street, and I'm like, I'm sorry, but I don't have kids to send you. So, and I'm sure some of you guys are feeling that as well. You know, are we able to get these kids out and where they need to be, so we can help out? So those are our stressors that we have that are typical, and now we have these added stressors for after COVID. So we want to talk primarily about secondary traumatic stress. So, and that is the emotional duress that results when an individual hears about the firsthand traumatic experiences of another person. So it's also called compassion fatigue. And I think teachers specifically are subject to secondary traumatic stress because they're seeing these kids, they're with the kids all day. They're hearing about the kids' backgrounds and what's happening, and they're taking that on. So they're recipients of these stories. And one of the things that I think is important to note is that usually our best teachers are the ones that are really, really struggling with this. Because they're the ones that make the relationships with the kids, and they're the ones that care about the kids and care about what's happening in their lives and try to get them the help. So, you know, they're the ones that are doing their best work and trying to get their lesson plans up and trying to teach really well online and in the classroom and everywhere. And they're trying to make everything work. And then they have this secondary traumatic stress on top of that as well. So we really need to worry about those people for sure, because they're the ones that can usually handle it and get through it, but they're the ones that seem to be the most stressed out at this point. So I went back to the original list and I highlighted in red those stressors that are secondary traumatic stress as well. So when you have the students who had trauma previously, so if something happened to them while they were out, or you know, they're in an abusive household, and those kind of things, and whatever the situation may be, the kids are coming back and they're finally somewhere where they have their teacher that they love so much and they just want to tell them everything, and it's a place where they feel safe. You know, they're coming back and kind of telling you these things. So then you're internalizing it and you're dealing with it and trying to get them the help they need. We see a lot of homelessness here now, that a lot more than we had previously because of parents losing jobs and not being able to afford houses. We see a lot of couch surfing going on right now with our kids. They're not where they're usually at. They're living with friends and that kind of thing. So, you know, you're worried about them. Are they going to find a house tonight? Are they living with somebody that's responsible? Are they just bouncing around from house to house? What can we do to help them? That's the secondary traumatic stress that you're taking on as an educator that's not necessarily yours to own, which is all of these things, but you still have to deal with them. And a lot of us can't let it go. I mean, you know, you see the other things over there. We have anxiety, we have the death and suicide, the mental health, the depression. I remember the last time I presented this, I was presenting on Monday or Tuesday, and on Friday, I had a kid in my office who we needed to call crisis for because they wanted to hurt themselves. And they were saying that they didn't want to live anymore. And we had, you know, professionals come in and meet with them and talk to them. And then they took them to the hospital. And that was the last I heard anything at all. The kid didn't show up Monday morning. So I'm all weekend worrying, did this kid get a bed? Did they get them help? Did the parents find them? Did they end their lives? Did they hurt themselves? You know, so you can't just turn it off. I mean, anybody that really cares about kids has a hard time, and most educators are like that, I would say. You know, you have this really hard time turning that off. And I'll text people and say, hey, did we hear anything? And the answer is typically no, because they don't tell us. So all weekend, you know, I'm trying to enjoy my kids and my family and do what I'm doing, but that's still there. Like, I hope this kid's okay. I hope they're doing what they got to do. The same thing happened with the Safe to Say. I think it was this year as well. We had somebody say the same thing, and the Safe to Say people said they were sending a search out with the police to the house to make sure this kid was okay. And I never heard back at all night long. I didn't sleep. I was up all night, like, worried about this kid. Where was he? Did they even know? Did the police find him? And then he shows up at 8 o'clock the next day, like nothing happened. And I'm like, okay, well, what happened between here and there? You know, so, but that's me worrying about, okay, I'm carrying these other people's stresses with me that maybe I shouldn't be, but it's really hard to turn it off when you actually care about somebody's life and how they're doing. So On top of all the stresses that are in Black, these secondary traumatic stress are things that we're holding with us as educators as well when kids are telling us about them. So there are obvious symptoms to compassion fatigue, increased irritability. I know some of my staff and my teachers and myself, some days you come in and it's like, just leave me alone, please, just don't come near me. I just don't want to be bothered by anybody. It's typically people that aren't like that. So it's kind of stressful because you don't want that happening and you're trying to create this positive atmosphere. Also, one of the things that happen are that teachers are backing off and they're not wanting to do as much because they have all this going on and they just don't feel like they have the time to do it. So typically your teachers that'll want to do the extracurriculars or if you're having a fun day or trying to do something and they're the people that are your go-getters, they're kind of like, not today. I don't really feel like doing that. So you have those issues start to arrive too. Impatience, like I said, that happens. Difficulty planning lessons. So you're so overwhelmed with what's happening throughout the day and you're just trying to make sure everybody gets what they need. Then when your planning period comes, you're kind of like, if you have one, our teachers don't have one. So by the end of the day, they're like, I'm not even gonna do that. And sometimes, especially at the beginning of the year, we were seeing like kids not being here or shops being shut down, or all of these kids are out with COVID and what are we going to do? We have 5 kids in our room and the rest of them are online. So planning a lesson that you would usually plan was hard because if you did it, you might be wasting your time. So a lot of people are like, well, I'm just not going to do it because it's not going to happen anyway. So then your lessons start to get, not as good as they were. And you're kind of just in this mode where things aren't going the way you want them to. But, why plan if there's going to be 5 kids here and I have to do something different online for 15 of them? So we started to see some of that happening. Decreased concentration, not being able to focus for long periods of time, feeling numb or detached. This is something that I've seen for sure where you just don't want to be involved. I mean, I've spent more time in my office this year than I've ever spent in my office in my life. And it's just because I don't want to go out there. And I say that nicely, but I don't want to deal with what's on the other side of that door. And I see that happening with different teachers as well. Like they're just, I'm going to stay to myself. I'm going to stay in my room. I'm going to just avoid other people. And that's not a good thing, right? We have people that don't want to be here. I have people that say, I don't want to come to work. And some days I feel like that too. But we have to try to get over this somehow. And we have to recognize what we're feeling and try to figure out how we're going to do that. And hopefully in the second part of this, we're going to do that. Somehow like the intense feelings about the trauma, like I said, when the kid was here on Friday and I didn't know what was going on, I was really worried. I couldn't shake that. So you get these feelings that aren't necessarily normal for you that you just can't get over. You're just constantly worried. The intrusive thoughts are the same. They just won't lessen. They won't go away. Dreams about student trauma. So sometimes if something's really traumatizing and really, really horrible, you may dream about it, and that's a definite symptom or sign that you have compassion fatigue and you need some help. Avoidance, we talked about. Self-isolation, feeling weak or incompetent. This was something that I thought about that I put in here. The feeling of weakness or incompetence or feeling overwhelmed obviously is all of these things, but the incompetent piece goes back to those teachers that are really good and those administrators and those educators that are usually your go-getters, the people that are on top of things that really want to do what they got to do. And you can't help people. It's so stressful. That was one of the things that I really, really, really struggled with, especially prior to this year, probably last year more than anything, was feeling like I couldn't do my job. I couldn't help people. I couldn't make it better. There's no end in sight. Like, how am I going to make this work? And everything you kind of try, you're fighting against all these other things. And it just seems like a dead end. And people that are really, really, like I said, they're perfectionists. They want to do those things. They're your go-getter people. That really, really hurt them a lot. And I think that was really something that a lot of people had to come over or get over when they were getting to that point. So one of the things that I thought about when I was putting this together is, just like our kids that we stop, we need to look at our teachers the same way. So they are holding all of their stress, they're holding their stress, the kids' stress, their home stress, their whatever, all of these things. But we recognize those kids and we see them and we know that they're feeling this way and we try to get them help. But how do we do that for educators and teachers and adults? And it's a lot harder and it's a lot different. But I mean, one of the things that we can do is just ask people if they're okay. I had a teacher last week who came here. We had two really, really tough IEP meetings for kids that are, not their own fault or just struggling. And we had to make some really tough decisions. And he came to me the next day and he was completely red and he was so upset. And I've never seen him like that. And I said, what's going on? And he said, I just don't know if I can do this. And I said, it's just a bad day. I understand. I feel the same way. We're holding this for these kids, right? We're holding these feelings because we're upset because this kid can't physically do something. And we have to tell them that maybe this isn't what you can do. And this is the kid's dream. So that really takes a toll on you. So I actually told him, go home. Go home. I'll send you home. I'll get somebody to cover your kids. We'll do what we got to do. Go home, take a nap, rest, read, go golfing. I don't care what you do. Just don't be here. Take a break and, enjoy your weekend and just try to shake it. And then on Monday, I had our social worker who was phenomenal. If any of you know her, Gretchen Whitman, she is just awesome. And our Miss Picked, our guidance counselor is great as well. They're very good at what they do. And we're really lucky to have both of them. So I had him talk to our social worker and I said, he's not okay. He needs help. But we have to make sure we're doing these things for our adults because, sometimes they need that. And just asking if they are okay or how they feel may be enough to get them to open up and just let some of it go. But if we just isolate in our rooms and don't talk to anybody, then that's not helping us at all. I said this last time that if our teachers aren't functioning and our educators aren't functioning, our system's not functioning. So the teachers are the backbone of everything that goes on, right? If you go into a classroom as a student and your teacher is always super upbeat and they have great lessons and they're really excited and they're asking you how your weekend was, and then you come in the next day and they're a little less excited and the lesson's like, meh, whatever, and you kind of see this deterioration. And then finally 2 weeks later, you come in and your teacher's like, oh, Dan, whatever you got to do is on the board, just leave me alone. Right. And you start to detach, then you're setting that example, you're setting that for the whole day. Everybody's going to feel that way. The kids aren't going to be excited and you're kind of just going downhill. And it's really hard to bring that back once that happens. So, we have to make sure our teachers are okay. We have to make sure that they are getting what they need. So ask them what's wrong. That's my advice for that. All right. We good? You still with me? All right, so one of the things I gave you guys is, and I have a copy of it here, I think they put it in the chat or with the, they gave you a link to these documents. One of them is a secondary traumatic stress scale. So it's, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're really stressed out and you want to know where you're at on the scale, you can pull this up and do it. I gave this to my teachers to do at the beginning of the year. We'll talk a little bit about that, but so what you do is you read each of the statements, there's 17 of them, and you indicate how frequently that statement was true for you over the last week, the last 7 days. So you circle the corresponding number, or you can write, 0 to 4 on there. So if you never felt that way, it's 0. If it's very often, it's 4. And then you go through and you rate where you are over the last 7 days. So on the back of this one that I gave you, and I added the link there, it has the scoring instructions and the rubric. So I Googled this to find it, and it is very, very hard to find this rubric. I don't know why, but most people just give you the first part. So I gave you the one with the rubric so you can go on and find it. It's good to do every now and then. I mean, if you have a lot going on and you really feel like you're struggling, I mean, at least know. So I think that's the biggest piece of this right now at this point is you need to know where you are. And some people say, oh, I'll be fine tomorrow. I'm one of those people, right? Yeah, whatever. I'll have some chocolate. I'll be great. Everything's fine. But at some point, you have to look and say, where am I and how much am I really stressed? Like, is it really bad? Do I really need help? Is it just something that's going to go away? But this will help you do that. And then when you interpret your score, it tells you have little to no secondary traumatic stress all the way up to severe. So if you're a person that takes this and you're like, oh my God, I'm in the high or severe, then you may want to start talking to somebody or see somebody. And you don't necessarily have to go to a doctor or, you know, a therapist or anything like that, but maybe you want to talk to one of your friends and somebody that knows and understands, so another teacher. Maybe you want to call your social worker and say, hey, I'm really struggling. I took this thing. It says I have high stress or severe stress, and see if you can just talk it out with them. So it's a really good tool. I said I gave it to my staff at the beginning of the year at in-service. At the beginning of this year, I had really high hopes. Somebody said they were hopeful in the chat before, which I love. But I was really hopeful that this year was going to be great and awesome, and we were just going to get back to normal life and things were going to be fine. So we all know that that's not how it's working out, but we're getting there. So I come into the first day in service and I got them all their goodie bags and whatever, and I gave them all this stuff and we tried to make it not horrible. And the first day, everyone was miserable. I mean, miserable, all of them. And I was so mad. And I was like, what is going on here? Like, why are these people acting like this? And I said, we're trying to do better. It's a brand new start. Like, come on, you got to do better. And I thought, you know, if these guys are like this on the first day of in-service, what's the first day of school going to look like? And then I thought, okay, so the first day of school might not be as exciting as usual. What's the 45th day of school going to look like? And what's day 90 going to look like? And what's day 180 going to look like? If we're starting this way, I'm not expecting it to get better. So I was super frustrated. I was really angry. And it wasn't anybody's fault. It's just how I reacted because I expected something different and I was hoping for something different. So I gave this to them and I said, hey, you know, you might want to do this. I didn't want it back. I just wanted them to have it in case they needed it, just like I did for you guys. But I mean, if you want to use this, if you're an administrator, if you're working with teachers, then you could give it to them. They can do it on their own. You could have them hand it back in and look to see where people are and not know it. I mean, you would do it anonymously. Or not if you want to, but you know, that way you could see, you know, where are my teachers? Where are they? How are they feeling? Do we have a lot of people that are this stressed out? Do we need to do something? Do we have people, are we kind of on the better side now that things are starting to get back to normal? But I think it's a good tool to use either way. So I wanted to share that with you. Yeah. So what time are we at? Okay. So the next part is about self-care, obviously. So we know what we're stressed out about. We know all those things. So where do we go? So we have 6 different types of self-care. We have emotional, which is the awareness of your feelings. And that's what that secondary traumatic stress scale does, right? It tells you this is where I'm at. You should know where you're at. It's good for you to understand. But if you're not doing that, you also need to focus on more of the positive things. That's my suggestion. So your positive emotions. I was at a training with Dr. Lisa Lucas. I don't know if anybody knows her, but one of the things that she talks about is making sure every day you're thankful for 5 things. So in the morning when she gets up, she says, I think about these 5 things. I pick a different thing every day. I can't say I'm thankful that the sun is out every single day, right? She purposely focuses on these are 5 things that I want to be grateful for today. And she tries to do different things every day. So that's a really good way to kind of wake up, start your day, or at night, either way, before you go to bed. What were good things that happened? I try to do this sometimes with my own kids because they're stressed out too, and I can see it. So, you know, if we're at a basketball tournament, we talk about, you know, what were the positive things? So not just for you, but for those around you. It's something you could do at a faculty meeting or with your staff, and those kind of things. So just recognizing those things and making sure you're focusing more on that than the negative. Physical, do things for your body that are healthy. So you could, some people like to run. I did that last year, and now I quit doing that. Now I eat chocolate again, but we all have our thing. So no matter what it is, I tried at the beginning of the year to start, we have a culinary program, and I said I was going to eat salad at least 2 days a week. So I tell the kids, I'm eating salad 2 days a week, no matter what I tell you, make sure you bring me salad. That's it, because this is what I need to do. So for those days when you're really struggling and you're stressed out and you just want to eat chocolate or, I don't know, a cheesesteak, the kids are like, no, mine hand, you're going to eat a salad. And I'm like, all right, give me the salad. So, but having somebody there to help you and those kind of things is good too. Our secretary started making us walk at lunchtime, whether it's up and down the stairs. We have 3 flights of steps here, and it's a struggle to get to the top some days. But we do that, or else we walk around outside. So just taking the time to do those things physically will help you. It helps you sleep better as well. I know when I was running, I was sleeping a lot better than when I wasn't. So making sure you're doing those things for your body. Psychological, addressing the anxiety, you need to own it. You have to own it. That's the most important part. You have to confront it. You have to own it. You have to know what's happening. You have to take the survey. You got to make sure you're understanding it and seeing it, because just keep burying it and burying it and burying it because you don't want to deal with it is not going to help. That honestly just makes it worse. Relationships are really important. So building relationships, making sure you're getting out of your classroom, making sure you're talking to your other teachers and your friends and people that you appreciate and that appreciate you and are supportive. You want to make sure you're still doing that. As much as I don't want to go out there some days, I force myself to do it because I know I'm going to see somebody. I was just in the hallway the other day and I saw a kid I probably didn't see for 2 years. And I was like, man, I need to get out of this office more because I'm missing these kids that I've seen. He was like, oh, I haven't seen you forever. And I'm like, I know, I've been busy. So, they need that as well. Those kids, those teachers, other people. So try to get out if you can and do that. One of the other things that's really important for relationships, I think, is new staff. So, we're not having all these meetings like we usually do for the most part, or they're online, or, they're new and they're coming into this pandemic world and it's total chaos. And to be a new teacher right now, I'm not sure I'd make it through a year, to be honest, just with all of these things that are happening. But we want to make sure we don't forget about them because they really don't know people. They're in their room by themselves. So more than ever, we want to make sure we're trying to talk to them and make sure we get them where they need to be and pull them along with us to a better space. Spiritual, drawing strengths on things that are greater than yourself. So religion, environment, community. People are doing yoga. I found a yoga on YouTube that was really good. You can do it in your basement, do it with yourself, do it with friends online. You can do just like we're doing here on, what is this called, Zoom. You can do all those things and try to do that. Spiritual, if you're religious, going to church and, maybe going to confession or talking with your priest or your pastor or whoever it is about what's going on, and just somebody that you trust and know that can help you is really, really important as well. And then professional, finding a good work-life balance. I am terrible at this. I will tell you that up front. This is my absolute biggest flaw, is that I cannot leave work at work. I've never been able to do that. It's really, really hard as an administrator because you're on the clock 24 hours a day because things are always happening. And you want to make sure you're good. And when you're in school, you're worried about all these things. And I get home and I'm like, all right, now I got to do email, or now I got to call these parents back. I called 4 parents on the way to my class last night because I was on the road and it was the only time I could do it. So you gotta stop doing that. We have to get better at just being at work or being at home and try to separate those two things. Okay. All right. So what I want you to do real quick is just take 30 seconds and think about what you do in each of these areas. Hopefully you were doing that as you were going along, or what you could do, or things that are new and different, or possibilities for you that you can try to do, and figure out which one of these things you're lacking the most, and maybe make that your goal after this presentation is to, I'm really bad at professional, I know that. So I want to focus on this. I'm going to make a plan for next week, and this is what I'm going to do. Okay. So I have some here. I pretty much talked about most of these things, but keep perspective. This is what I need to do. This is where I need to be. These are the things that are important. These are the things that I can and cannot control, because that's a huge, huge part of this, right? If you can't control it, you got to try to let it go. How much of this is mine to own? So, if the kid is, the kid that went home over the weekend, they have parents, right? Their parents need to own whatever's going on while they're not here with me. So I can try to let it go, hoping that, somebody else is doing what they need to do for this kid. Spending time with family, eating well, exercising, engaging in fun activities, taking a break, reflecting. The one that I really, really liked was intentionally cry or laugh. So for me, when I get really, really upset or angry, especially when I'm mad, if I'm really mad, I start to it comes out, it just starts crying and I can't control it. And it's really, really horrible and annoying. And it's not even like crying. It's just, I call it water coming out of my eyes. So I'm not a big crier, but when I get that overwhelmed and that stressed out, I just start breaking down. And it's something that happens to me. And I don't want to do that in front of kids, right? I don't want to do that in front of parents. I don't want to do that in front of people. So sometimes if you're really starting to feel it, intentionally crying when you're by yourself, lock yourself in the bathroom. Sometimes I do that. Find a place where you can just go and do those things. And the other one is just laugh. I mean, I can't tell you the last time I sat with a friend and laughed, and I probably could use that in my life. And I'm sure many of us could, but I have one friend that's really, really, really funny. And if I'm extremely overwhelmed and I know the cry stage is coming, I can call him and be like, we need to go out for an hour because I need to laugh. And he's just that person that can make you laugh about anything, like anything. But that kind of gets you in a different mind space and it gets you excited. And like, at least you're not thinking about it for the time being. And you have that hour or so to just be happy and be excited and be, laughing. So those things, I think that one's really important that I don't think we think about a lot. Some of these other things, are things we do all the time, but I thought that one was interesting. And take a day off. So I also don't do that either, but you can't feel guilty about taking a day off. And I know as an educator, one day off is like 3 days in the classroom, but you got to do it sometimes. You have to step away. You got to go do something for yourself. They call them mental health days for a reason. You need to, do whatever you got to do, go to the spa, take a nap, just sleep, get a shower, whatever you want to do, go for a run, go out and hang out with your friends. But it's really, really important that sometimes you just take that time and separate yourself. All right. So how do we help our educators? The most important thing is to be intentional. You want to do something for a reason. You want to do it for a specific reason. You don't want to just do things to do them because they're not going to mean anything. The teachers have to know that. Look for opportunities inside your existing schedule. This is really important. So take the time to do it, even though you don't have time, because it's necessary to move on. So things aren't happening anyway. Sometimes everything's starting to break down. If it's getting really bad and you see people struggling, the half hour, even 15 minutes, whatever it is that it takes to do that activity, it will help, but you have to do it. But you can't add on extra. So, if you're doing an in-service, add it to in-service. If you're having a faculty meeting, add it to whatever you're already doing, and try to build things into what's going on already. So it's not seen as an extra thing, because the last thing teachers and educators want at this point is an extra thing to do. Think outside the box, do different things, have fun, do things you didn't do previously. There's millions of examples out online for you to look at. So just Google it and you'll find what you need, or at least you can manipulate something that you see. That's what I do anyway. Be sincere, like I said, is as important as being intentional. So if your teachers know you actually care about them and that you really, really want to help them, then it will help. If you're doing it just because you think you need to do it, then they're going to read right through that and it's going to be like, oh, here we go again. They're trying to make us feel better. But if they really know you care, and I really sincerely hope that my teachers know I care about them, and my kids and my students and everybody, because I really, really do. And I want them to be okay. And when I sent the guy home because he was struggling, I meant it. Like, I'm like, go home and do nothing. Like, whatever you want to do, I want you to be okay. And I was sincere about it, and I think they appreciate that. Be aware of their time, but the importance of the activity, I kind of said that before, and make it about them. This is not about you. This is not about me. It's about them. It's about how they feel. It's about what happens to them. It's about what they get out of it. If you're just doing it because you can say like, oh, I'm the administrator that does this or whatever, then it's not about them at all, and it's not going to help. So it has to be about what they need, when they need it, and it has to be sincere. And you got to secure administrator buy-in. If you're not an administrator, I am, fortunately, so I can do these things, but if not, and you want to help, work with your administrative team, and I'm sure they're going to help you. At least somebody's going to want to. So now I'm going to go over, I know I'm like really out of time, but I think this is really important, and I'll try to get through it, but I'm going to talk about what we did. So we did wellness activities. So the one thing that I really enjoyed, and I forgot to send this to you again, so I can do that. Then maybe they can email it out to you, but we did like I said before, we're kind of in a poverty-ish in areas, so I have no money for any of this stuff. So everything I try to do is as low cost or free as possible. So I was last year at the end of the year, my teachers were struggling. There were 45 days to go. It was the last market period, and I could just see it. They were shutting down. They weren't doing anything. They didn't want to do nothing. So I was like, I got to do something. So I wanted them to know how much I care about them and how much I appreciate everything they do. So what I decided was we were going to do staff spotlights, and we had every single staff member fill out one of these sheets, and then I made announcements for each person, and everybody had their day. So I had Miss Minahan Day, I had Miss Dalton Day, I had Miss Pickelman Day, I had Mr. Kinsel Day. So every single teacher in our whole entire organization, and I did everybody. I did maintenance, I did everybody that works in the building. So we had, when it was your day, so when it was Miss Minahan Day, we had an announcement about me, and I took what they wrote on this paper and made it into like a paragraph that the kids read in the morning. We put the same one on the our Facebook page, and then so people in the outside could see it, right? Because we're hearing it, the kids are hearing it, and the kids were so excited when it was their teacher's day. Like, it just made everybody happy. We had an end of the year countdown, which I'll show you. One of the stipulations was you can dress up as much as you want, or you can dress down and wear a hoodie and jeans and whatever you want. It was your day, you could do whatever you want. I couldn't find crowns online for 100 people, so I called my local Burger King and said, hey, do you guys have any crowns that you're not using? And they said yes, ironically. So they gave me 2 boxes, so I still have some. But we took STC stickers and put them over the Burger King signs, and everybody got a crown on their day. I went down at the beginning of the day when it was their day, and I crowned them, and I made a big deal out of them, and we clapped and cheered, and it is what it is. So that was really fun. And the most important thing I think that I made people do was to be intentionally celebrating the faculty member of the day. So I told them at the beginning, I said, if it's Mrs. Minahan Day, I want you to make the biggest fuss out of her every single time you see her that day to make her know that she's appreciated. I told the kids that, I told everybody, and they actually did it. So it was really cool when it was your day, like you'd walk down the hall and everybody'd be like, hey, there's Miss Minahan, it's your day, we love you. And it was awesome, and I loved it so much. And people actually got involved and did it. So it was really cool. So I just have these here. So these were our write-ups for Facebook. So we just took whatever I wrote up based on their sheet, and we put their picture and their name on. We did have 1 or 2 people that didn't want to be on Facebook, and that was fine. We just didn't put that on there, but we still did it in school for them. So this is Jack. He's our cafeteria guy, and he's the king of our cafeteria. So, but these were the crowns. You can see it there that we gave out. And we crowned them and made them wear those. So it was really cool. And then, the parents and everybody got to see and learn a little bit more about what our teachers do and how they are. So these are other people. This is how we dressed up. This is Kathy, our secretary. She wore her Betty's and her robe all day long, and she just rocked that. And we had a fire drill. So TJ, our co-op guy, carried her out to safety because she was the queen. So that was kind of amusing. This is Phil. He's our carpentry guy, and he doesn't really enjoy any of these things that I do because this is not his style, and he doesn't like it, but I made him wear that crown, and we cheered for him all day. And it was our spring fling, so I had my hair done, and I made him take his picture, and he was thrilled with me. But he had fun, and he liked it, and he did have a good day. Betty is one of our instructional aides. She's 70, in her late 70s, and she is in welding and plumbing. She's been here forever. We love her. and she wore her husband's carpentry outfit all day. It was fun. She liked it. And this was me. I love to sparkle. I love all things that sparkle and bling. So I wore my prom dress and my crown and sparkly shoes. I actually ran the 100-yard dash in that dress too, by the way, which was pretty interesting and on video. So not good, but I just so happened to have the same day as our fun day. So it was fun. People dressed up. We're all over the gamut. I said we did this countdown, and this is a good thing. And if you want to start this like tomorrow or today, if you're on your 4th marking period, this is fantastic. It was super easy. We made days 1 to 45. And when it was your day, you got to tear it off the wall. So like, oh, thank God, another day is done. We're closer to summer. And I don't know why this ridiculous activity helped people so much, but it really was. And at the end of the day, everybody's really excited, and they'd all come down and we take it off and everybody would cheer. And it was like, oh, one more day closer. So this is something you can do any day. At the very end, the last day, I tore that number 1 down and we put it in the shredder, the shred bins right here. And we shred it and everyone went crazy and it was so fun. So just something simple and easy that cost no money at all whatsoever, was pretty good. We also did some professional development activities. We did training with SREB, and this was at the end of the year. And I was like, I don't want to do anything that means anything. I just want to have a fun day. And, you know, Val came in and she did some awesome stuff with them. She did some stress relieving mental health stuff. This is our instructional aides building balloon towers for I don't know what reason, but they did it and they loved it. We had yoga. We had somebody that we know come in. We paid her a couple dollars to do a yoga session for anybody that wanted to do it. That was probably the best day of work of my life. I needed that so bad, and it was awesome. We did a scavenger hunt and on an in-service day, and we basically paid like drinking games without the alcohol. So we had, we had flip cup in one area, and we had pong in another area, and we just found all the like fun kid games that we had around our houses and brought them in, and we did a scavenger hunt, and we made up little clues to the room where you needed to go, and then you did that, and then you got points and whatever, and we had winners and we gave gift cards and all that stuff. But we let them go with the people that they like. We didn't force them to get in groups with people they didn't want to be with. So it was just a fun day that everybody kind of had, and it was a good time. And one of the areas that we did was the plate smashing, and this was fantastic. So we got plates that were really cheap online on Amazon or wherever, and you have to make sure they're smashable, because if they're not, then that totally defeats the purpose. But when they got to the room, one of their clues was to write down anything that you were angry about or hated or mad about, or anything you wanted to get rid of at all in your life that was just making you mad, whether it was home or work or whatever. And they wrote it on the plate, and then they took the plate with them. And at the end of the day, everybody went out, and one at a time, we smashed the plates in the middle of the breezeway. And it was awesome. And people just kind of got rid of that stuff that was on their nerves or making them angry. And it was really fun. Although they smashed everywhere and they shattered and went all over the place. But we cleaned it up. The administrators cleaned it up. We did not make our maintenance people clean it up. So please don't do that to your maintenance people, because they will hate you forever. But we went out there with brooms and we just did it. And a couple of our teachers helped us do it. They were like, oh, that was fun. We'll help you. So, but it was really a good way to just kind of get some steam out and to, get rid of some of those things that they were holding on to. We always do a weight loss competition. We started ours a couple weeks ago, actually. So we started in January. We end right before Memorial Day. The person with the most percentage loss wins, and we did most pounds as well. This guy here that looks super cocky is super cocky, and that's just him. He's our machine trades teacher, Fred, and he wins every single time we do this, and it's so frustrating. I lost 40 pounds one time, and he still beat me, and I was so mad. So that's why we put the percentage lost in. So we have 2 people can win it. But this is me doing sit-ups with our criminal justice kids, and Mr. Flynn, our teacher, we were doing sit-ups and push-ups. I call it Workout at Work Fridays, because they do their physical activities. So we were going out and doing that with them to try to, beat Fred. 1 week, people beat him. He didn't lose any weight, and everybody everybody that beat him that week got a sticker. So I got a sticker, and it was just fun. I mean, everybody in the building knew that Fred didn't win that week. He came back the next week and totally killed us all. And we all, you know, lost like nothing, and he lost like 15 pounds or whatever it was. But still, for 1 week, we beat him. So we kind of rubbed it in a little bit, and he ended up winning, and that's just how it always is. But it was just fun. It's something fun we do to try to, you know, get people to go out there and, you know, look at that, the physical side of things. You know, let's decompress and get some stress out by doing that as a group. We do field day. Different things we do pumpkin chucking, which is we do in the fall because we have the 2 semesters where the kids throw pumpkins the furthest to see who can win. And then we have our teachers do it as well against the kids, the champions, and then we have an overall champion. We do kickball, tug of war, the 50-yard dash. Like I said, I did that in this dress. It was interesting. We did water balloon fights and dunk tanks. I will tell you that we had the dunk tank heated up overnight, and oh man, now I'm all over the place. Let's see where I'm at. Sorry, I'm almost done. We had the dunk tank, and we had it heated up, and it was really nice because it wasn't freezing. We had window painting for the kids. We did picnic lunches. We did apple crisp. So these are some pictures, and I'm not sure why they're sideways, but they are. Teacher appreciation breakfast we do every year. So our administrators, our secretaries, our support staff buy everything. We come into our culinary restaurant and we cook for our whole staff. We do it in the morning on, you know, whatever week that is in May. And then our whole staff eats together in our restaurant, which is really fun. So it's just a thank you to them. Other ideas, when we were on COVID, I sent every one of my teachers and my kids and everybody in my building a postcard. You know, I put these little Bitmojis on because they're super cute. And I sent it just saying, I'm thinking about you. I hope you're okay. If you need anything, here's my number, call me. But that I got a lot of emails and phone calls like, oh my God, thanks for sending this to us. It just, you know, helps to know that you care. We did Zoom background contest, and like 10 people showed up with this one. So I had to put that on there. When we came back to school, I decorated their doors, and I couldn't find an actual door decorated, but I put posters on them, and my secretaries came in and helped me. We had, I don't know, mugs or something. I don't remember what, but we put that on their doors. When they came back, the whole building was decorated, which was pretty cool. I have a candy bar in my office. I don't know if you can see behind me, but over there is all candy. It's like this whole big bar, and people come in and they get candy whenever they want to, kids and adults. And one of the things that this really helped me as an administrator, because I pull all kinds of people in for all different reasons. They're not just coming for bad things. And they trail me all their information. So if something's going on out there and they come in for candy, they're telling me about it. So it's kind of like a double win, you know, like I get to know what's going on out there, and they get candy. So it cost me a lot of money to do that, by the way. So just a disclaimer, I still buy it at the dollar store, but it's still astronomical. But I do that because I want to see people and I want them to come see me. I do get gift cards for my staff every now and then, $5 gift card from, you know, Dunkin' or wherever, and just put it in their mailbox with a note that says, like, I appreciate you. Goes a long way. I get them prizes for pretty much everything we do. We don't go through a, you know, in-service or whatever without some kind of candy or, you know, prizes or whatever. And sometimes I buy them lunch or breakfast or donuts or whatever. And it's not all the time, but it just helps to make sure, you know, they know that you're thinking about them. They know that you care. If you have really big staff, I mean, that's really might be more difficult. Maybe a couple people can go in together and help out. But just doing those little things, you know, help, and it's appreciated, I'm sure. At least they tell me that is. One of the other thing I gave you was just, I found this online. It's self-care bingo. You can maybe make it a monthly challenge if you're really struggling to get out and do some self-care things. You know, pick one of these things a day, or, you know, do it for a week, or give it to your staff and see who can do the most. Make it a contest, but I gave you the link to that as well. You can do it with faculty, you can do it with students, you can do it with your family, you can do it with whoever. But, you know, it just kind of gives you ideas, makes you be proactive and actually physically think about, you know, I said before about being aware of where you're at and what you're doing. So that will help you to maybe come up with some ideas. That's pretty much all I have. You know, what other things are there that you can do? I hope you were kind of thinking about some of these things, and if you can take them and use them, or different ideas that you have to help you and your staff and all those people to do better. But the major takeaway we want to talk about is happy teachers, happy educators equal happy students. So you got to make sure you're taking care of your teachers. You have to make sure you're taking care of the adults, because if you're not, like I said before, your kids are going to be, you know, the same as the teachers, upset and cranky, and just, it's going to have an overall bad feel. So if you can try to help make their day better and try to do better for them, then hopefully it'll trickle down and everyone will be happy and be fun. So thank you very much. I know that was long. I always go over for this, but I think it's important to understand, you know, where we are, where we're coming from, what's happening, you know, how we can fix it, and then some ideas to share. So thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something today that you didn't know.